Jeff and I, we just got back from the #1 college admissions conference in the US. And let me say this, it was intense. Here's everything we learned. By the way, I'm Kevin from the Elevated School, Yale grad, amateur breakdancer, and pro college counselor. Today, I'll be sharing the 5 biggest takeaways from this year's conference. Let's talk about AI in college admissions. You might be wondering, if I use ChatGPT, will they catch me? Are essays scanned by detectors? Here's the truth. Yes, some schools are using AI, but not in the way that you think. Virginia Tech, for example, is using it to reduce 2 readers per admissions file now down to 1. AI helps triage, but it's still humans who are reading. However, when we spoke to admission officers at the top colleges, Yale, UCLA, they flat out said no. No AI ever makes the final call. In fact, we don't even use AI in our processes at all. Katie Kinnaman from the CMU admissions office said, hey, imagine if we had an AI scanning purely for GPA. If it saw a 2.4, they might just auto-reject a student. But a person might see, oh wow, this student's from another country, their GPA scale is totally different. A 2.4 is actually really, really good. That's why we have human eyes on every single application. AI detectors, truth be told, most schools don't even bother. One AO from GW said that the detectors hallucinate too often, and there's just way too many false positives for it to be even vaguely useful. So they don't even use it. But what about students using AI? We spoke to a lot of admission officers about this topic, and they basically were like, yeah, we're cool with it. They compared it to asking an older sibling for help. Totally fine for brainstorming, polishing, and really helpful for research. But of course, don't ask Chat or Claude to write entire sections of your essay. Now, this next bit here, guys, totally shocked me. Believe it or not, admission officers actually encouraged guidance counselors to use AI for rec letters. When you think about it a little bit more though, it kind of makes sense. Like, imagine you're a guidance counselor writing 300 recommendation letters every single winter break. That's brutal. One admissions officer literally said, and I quote, feed ChatGPT a few past letters in your style, then use student brag sheets to just generate drafts you polish. Now, speaking of admission officers, what else did they say? One of the hottest events at this conference was the Counselor Admissions Fair, where you could chat with dozens of admission officers. So of course, we did. Here are the highlights. UCLA admissions officer Gary Clark emphasized, get to the point. He jokingly said, don't start with, it was a dark and stormy night. Your UC essays should be tight, insightful, and reflective. Also, since these personal insight questions are capped at 350 words, every sentence matters. And finally, the UCs don't take rec letters or interviews, so essays are weighted even more heavily. Now here's a tip from Columbia admissions officer Tahira Crawford. Be extra careful with Reddit. Oftentimes you'll see admitted students share their essays online, and then suddenly the next year, everyone is using a really similar structure or formula. So if your essay looks like a carbon copy from a viral post, yeah, that's kind of a red flag. Now, with that being said, Ms. Crawford also mentioned they do give students a lot of grace, knowing that not every single student has access to the same resources. So sometimes people turn to the internet and use that for inspiration. That's fine. The Yale admissions team kept emphasizing this. Nail the prompt. Their Why Yale essay looks pretty short, it's just 125 words, but it's one of the most important questions on the whole application. Every year, I see students just make this mistake. Don't just list Yale resources. They want to hear about you, not Yale, your past, your experiences, and why that would make you an awesome fit at Yale. It's more about how you'll take advantage of the Yale classes, programs, events to accomplish your BHAGs. That's short for Big, Hairy, Ambitious Goals. Now, speaking of what not to do, let's talk about the craziest topic so far, admissions fraud. The workshop on fraud was by far the most crowded one we attended. It was run by 2 no-nonsense NYU admission officers. Look guys, the fraud they were describing wasn't like, I exaggerated my club hours. I'm talking about some next level forgery. First off, transcript fraud. Some students transfer high schools, then they hide bad grades from their first few years. Some modified classes on their transcripts or invented entirely new ones. Doing something like this will instantly get you blacklisted. Please, don't even think about it. Next up, we have fake schools. I can't even make this up. An NYU staffer once visited a place in Shanghai to verify if that building was even a school. It turns out the school was just an abandoned office building. And worst of all is financial aid fraud. I don't know if you guys heard about this, but there's people running ghost student rings. They like steal identities to siphon federal dollars. Now, that's a very extreme case. It's just most definitely a federal crime. You can and will be sentenced to prison. But I also know some students or families who are thinking of a lighter version, maybe hiding their income, doing something more in the gray zone to get more financial aid. I would really encourage you guys to just do things by the book. Like, the risk, it's just not worth it. The NYU admissions team really wanted to hammer this point. If you are accused of fraud, it's not an accusation. It's like the admissions team is 99% sure you're guilty. Now, how do you avoid all this drama? Well, first, make sure you're the one submitting your application. You, the student, are reviewing everything that goes through the Common App portal. Like, many times, kids didn't even know they were committing fraud because their parents tweaked a few grades, or there was a bad actor like an outside paid counselor who helped embellish their activities list. Be sure to have copies of all your essays and drafts, right? So how do you stand out without faking? Well, one of the strongest ways, one of the best ways that we advise is by emphasizing your race and culture. There was an entire workshop dedicated to this topic, like, should you talk about race in your college essays? The unanimous advice? Yes. Guys, here's the thing, like, even with all these political attacks on DEI, schools still prize racial, cultural, ethnic, spiritual, religious identity. They just can't state it super explicitly on their website. So they say things like holistic admissions review process, or they bake it into some of their supplemental essay prompts, like the lived experience or community belonging type essays. Now, from my experience advising students, helping them get into every single top 20 school for the past 5 years in a row, most Asian applicants, they don't write about their heritage, but those who do and do it well stand out. I'll give you a few examples in just a second. Now, the next bit is straight from an admissions officer. They're not just interested in how you'll contribute academically, but also socially. Like, guys, this is not China or India. You don't take a single test. You are more than a test score. And that is really empowering. So let's talk about a few ideas or suggestions on how to actually execute this. Here's a true story. There was a student I worked with in years past who was the only Hispanic dude on a lacrosse team. So he wrote about how he started a program helping more Latino students get support in these predominantly white sports. Another student mentioned how she translated Asian traditions like Lunar New Year and lion dance into Spanish to share with other members of her community. This last one here though, it's my favorite. One of my Yale classmates was agnostic, but she visited 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different houses of worship, as a teen. Mosques, churches, temples. Then she wrote this magnificent essay about openness and bridge building. Last but not least, let's zoom out. How do larger political forces like the Trump era policies affect students in today's admissions? Let me break it down for you. For domestic students, there's literally zero impact. Guys, these admission committees, they compare you to peers in your state. They would never compare you to Kevin from a private boarding school in New Hampshire. If you're from California, Florida, Texas, they compare you to other public school students who are interested in studying what you're studying, who are also of the same ethnic background, racial background, gender. Like, they don't even compare Asian boys to Asian girls. That's honestly awesome news for you. Like, you don't need to be the best in the world or best in the country at a certain subject. You just kind of need to be the best in your school district. For international students, it's a little bit more complicated. Now, some visas require you to go home for a renewal. And maybe you've heard of cases where kids were studying in the US for a year, they left, and now they can't come back. Interestingly, there is a silver lining, and we heard from admission offices that they're being more lenient with international students. Their plan is to defer more students, waitlist more students, because they're not sure if the student who's accepted can actually come and study at their institution. So, if you're an international student, what should you do? I'd highly encourage you to apply to US colleges still, especially elite ones like Harvard, Duke. They historically give out the most financial aid, but also, there's really amazing liberal arts colleges like Amherst, Swarthmore, who are also very, very generous. They'll pay for everything. At the same time, I would recommend kind of hedging your bets. So add UK, Canadian, even Australian or New Zealand schools to your list. They're more affordable and they're just really incredibly strong options as well. Like, you're only gonna apply once, so you might as well just apply everywhere. The same goes for US applicants too. You guys can explore European options. It might actually be cheaper, and the admissions process is not that different, with the one exception of like the UK interviews. But we'll talk about that some other time. My friends, my dear virtual little siblings, if you want help presenting your best self authentically, that's what we do best at Elevated. Check out our site, elevated.school/editmyessay, and use this code YouTube15 me to get 15% off your first purchase. I also have a completely free present for you, access to our 2025 Elevated cheat sheet. You can see admitted profiles for students who are interested in business, pre-med, engineering. All you have to do is just go to our website and enter your email. Totally free of charge. If you guys enjoyed this video, it would mean the world to me if you guys could just leave a comment. It helps us spread more of these free resources to amazing students like yourself. And honestly, yeah, let me know below, like, what'd you learn? What surprised you the most? Until next time, my dear virtual little sibling, peace.